Okay, we're going to do a walkthrough of Lab 3, the dplyr lab. So here we go. I have my RStudio open and I have my Google Classroom page open. I'm on the virtual desktop today. So the first thing we're going to do is copy the lab into an R Markdown window. So I'm just going to copy all and then go over here and make a new R Markdown window. You can also get it from the U drive. So then it makes kind of a generic R Markdown file for you. And as we did before, we're just going to paste over top of that. And then I'm going to save it. And I'm just going to call it rlab 03 dplyr. .rmd. Okay, and then I'm going to make this window big because that's the one I'm going to be using the most. And so here we are. Notice this lab is pretty long. If you haven't watched the dplyr videos, there's 4 of them, I think, altogether, each about 10 minutes long. You probably want to watch that first. Okay, so this lab is going to walk you through those same 5 commands that we did in the video. It's also going to walk you through pipe chains and a couple of other things. So again, this lab is going to use that Kim data file that we had before. So we're going to start by running all the labs. Now you can see that I don't actually have the file loaded, so we need to take care of that. So there's a couple ways to do that, but again, if you're in the Google Classroom, the file's right here, and I would click on it and save it. So you're going to save it to wherever your project is. If you forgot what your project is, you might go over here and look. Mine's on the Y drive. Y drive, stat 220, summer 2019. And why is it looking like that? Tab. Okay, it's there. So now I am going to go ahead and move that file to the Y drive. Maybe that's okay that I'm doing it this way, this little slightly longer way. Open in a new window, summer 19. Oops. And back to where I was before. And I'm going to just copy it over here. All right, I did get that extra parenthesis because I already had a copy of it in that folder. So I'm just going to put it back to the clean Kim data one. Okay, so file management is actually one of the trickier things that we do here. So it's probably okay. So now I'm going to run it again. Let's check to make sure it's here, clean Kim data.csv. So I'm going to run it again. And now you can see it ran just fine. Now, the lab talks about this a little bit, but we have actually 2 different ways to import files. Read_CSV, which is what I just did, is the tidyverse way to do that. Read.csv is the base R way to do that. And there are a few little differences about how it loads. For instance, read.csv puts little periods in between the variable names, whereas read_CSV keeps them in their kind of raw form. And so there are times where you might want it one way and times where you might want it the other way. Okay, so now that we have it downloaded, we're just going to walk through the lab. Again, it's going to walk through the filter command, talks a little bit more about the different commands we can use with filter for relational operators. Remember, we talked about double equal sign in the video. You can also use or and so on. Now, notice that each of the questions in the lab not only asks you to edit a command, but it also asks you to write a little sentence. I put the little 4 hashtags here to make this subtitle, and then you write whatever your explanation is. I think it's because of whatever. Okay, so you're going to just go ahead and do that. Then it gets to the select command, walks you through those. It talks about a couple different ways to do that, including getting the columns by number. It talks about the rename command, which is an extra variation that just renames a variable. You actually can rename something while you're selecting it. And so, for instance, changing the shoe size variable into shoe.size might be easier, so you don't need these little back quotes. Because remember, back quotes are kind of annoying. The mutate command we talked about as well. And then it does give you some other things to do there with that. And then grouping and summarizing, and group by along with the summarize variable. Summarize can be spelled either with an S or a Z. I made a joke about that before, but all of the tidyverse are actually set up to work with either American English or British English, so you can spell summarize however you'd like. It does go into some other ideas, some other calculations you can do, like senior.percent. Creates a logical variable, and then it takes the percent of that. Remember, if you just have zeros and ones, then the percent of things that are 1 is the same as the percent of people who answer yes to that. And the mean of that actually works a little bit surprisingly. Okay, so this lab, it is pretty long. It does take a little bit of time to do. If you haven't figured it out by now, dplyr is really one of the core ideas that we're doing in the class. I'm not intending that you have to become a master coder in order to really succeed in this class or to get a good grade in the class. But understanding these ideas of how dplyr works and how we can use these ideas to clean data sets in order to get them ready to go, that is really an important idea. So if you have any questions, talk to me at office hours or shoot me an email. But otherwise, this lab, I feel like it really is sort of the meat of the class. That the first lab was an introduction, the second one was about graphs, which was sort of cool. This one is also cool, but I think it is a little bit heavier of a lift. So if you have any questions, let me know, and otherwise, enjoy.